Testing one, two, testing one, two, testing one, two, testing one, two. Blessings one, two, blessings one, two. Praises one, two, praises one, two. Y'all, good morning, good morning. I know I'm already in the after zone. Welcome to World of Alkebulan Worship Experience. Uh, we are a little bit late. I was up early this morning at 7 o'clock doing some work for someone in the community, blessing somebody other than just asking for blessings. I was being a blessing. So that's why we're a little bit set back. And so we're about to get started. So welcome. Of course, you know this is the Rise of the African. Now there is a special moment going on, and this is why I said I had to do this. I had to come live. I had to be here to make this happen. Wait, there's some things I got to fix. All right. And so I want to sit down and say happy anniversary to my church. So I got to make sure I get that out. Happy anniversary to the Pan African Orthodox Christian Church. Thank you so much for the 69 years. That's like retirement age. You know what I'm saying? And it's so funny that we talk about retirement age. That means every person that was here uh, in the early days, man, it's like we going through a transition of population and leadership here, where we are looking for the next younger generation to come up, and we are transitioning a lot of those who raised us. We transition them a lot over to their homes, to their final power place. We're not going to say resting place, the final power place. So we want to make sure we give big ups, big ups, big ups to our our major church body. World of Alkebulan is always in the process of growing, developing, and preparing the next generation for the development of our church community. I'm sitting here looking at this, I'm telling you, and I said it before last week that FB has been after me for the last 4 months. They've been censoring the Black Power potential for the last 4 months. And I just looked at something and said, oh, they still trying to get what? The revolutionary spirit that will not long permit man to endure injustice, right? And so this is what we're moving forward as a people. We're focusing on the rise of the African. We're saying happy anniversary to our church body. And in that scenario, so if you're watching us via Facebook, we're going to ask you to please like, comment, share. Always like, comment, share. This is how we continue to do what my community calls COR, is community outreach, letting people know that there is a word of liberation and a love of struggle and freedom and determination and self-defiance and self-reliance for Black people. Right. This is where I'm not going to tell you my new slogan. I'm going to create a church t-shirt. I'm going to put on a slogan and I'm going to wear the t-shirt one day. So y'all get ready for it this fall. So if you're watching on Facebook, please continue. And if you're watching on YouTube, yes, we're going to ask you to hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell so that every time that we go live, you are a part of that. Now we're going to do something special since I'm running, behind the clock. We started at a little bit later, with this thing. There's going to be something called Rewind Selector. Somebody said, hey, brother, sometimes when, can you do some older or the previous versions of World of Alkebulan? This is not going too far back. So we're having a rewind moment where I invited the sister who actually helped develop the concept of World of Alkebulan. World of Alkebulan is actually a manifestation of the original vision. Now, we're not talking about Cardinal Monifa, because Cardinal Monifa, yes, would love to have you on the show one day and just to talk about the concepts and everything that you contributed to the development of the Alkebulan program, as well as the spirituality of the church itself. But this sister is Sister Bishop Djenaba. And so we're going to do a rewind and take a look back at that experience. I'm not used to seeing myself in rewind mode, so it was funny to actually watch it. But with the faith of a Black Madonna, And that was this particular version of what this title was called, with the faith of a Black Madonna, which is the Black mother. We could not be a community if it wasn't for the Black woman. It just wouldn't happen. And so, as to say thank you for uh, the 69 years of service to everybody who has gone before me, helping people understand that I am only a manifestation of individuals I saw fight for the sake of the liberation of Black people, and that's that on the mind, the freeing us from the slavery of the mind, because now physical slavery is over, mental slavery exists. And so this is the community that definitely a part of, that helps me continue to work on my own version of mental slavery, and then also creating the experience that allows youth to be developed and grow with less chains on their thinking and on their spirits and on their doing. Ain't that something? All right. And so we want to continue with this. This is a rewind featuring Bishop Djenaba. Hopefully you've enjoyed that experience. If you didn't see it, you get to see it now. Here's the interview and the exchange. One love.
If I tell you I got power in the studio today, if I let you know I got power in the studio today, you gotta believe it. You just gotta believe it. Now look, as we continue on this series, and you see it, with the faith of a Black Madonna, Black mother, woo, sister, who am I called to be? And we've been talking about who am I called to be. The song said, how can I repay you for all that you've given to me? And if you're going to repay God in any shape, form, or fashion, all you have to do is be who you are called to be in every shape, form, and fashion. Now, we've been talking about that, right? And we've been sharing with you individuals in our community who have lived and are living their life to the potential in which God called them to. And we've been sharing that with you so that the world could see and have faith in the journey in which we are. Because now we were in that, we were dealing with the issues of, or the topic of, train up a child. Because we were talking about how do you make this experience where people are living in the fullness of God a transgenerational experience. How do you get it from generation after generation after generation, where when they I know back in the day in the South, they would actually ask you who your mama is or who your people are, because they knew, according to how your family was, they knew what the stock that was in you. So we talk about Proverbs 26:6, training up a child. And it doesn't matter how old that child will get, you train them up right in God, that child will not move to the left nor to the right. It will only know how to do what God has called him or her to do. I can only be the best of me in every situation. Now, we were talking and we were using our biblical reference of the entire journey, because we took it all the way back. We all the way through the Bible, but I said, let me take it all the way back to the beginning so that we could understand that the fight to fulfill the covenant promise as a people first started as us finding our identity in God. And then God made the covenant promises. I will be your God if you be my people. So that means there was something we had to do and who we had to be. And so we talked about how when Abraham gave it to Isaac, how Isaac gave it to Jacob, and then now you have Joseph. And then we went through that, and I love Joseph. I didn't understand, how much he truly went through with his brothers, but I love the fact that his connectedness. And we went through and I didn't have this, and I didn't even know I was going to go through it like this, but we went through what would be that parental guidance of that group. And we came up with the fact that it was going to be that generational transition of a divine identity, who you are in God. And then we talked about the generational transition of responsibility and liberation. Israel, this is what they were doing. And we went from there to how can we get our kids to experience the Holy Spirit so they're fighting with the Spirit of God, the generational transition of the Holy Spirit. How can you get to the point where when you're like, You're feeling that. And so as the world was turning, and it's always turning, we were going through something as a people in terms of the civil unrest and the accomplishments of the efforts of Black women during the voting election, where if you look at our community, the percent, 70% of the Black community that vote are Black women. I was like, whoa. So when we're trying to choose the better of two evils and we got Black women lifting us up, and I was in a conversation the other day, and somebody made the statement. I was on an Uber ride, right? And they were talking about the election, and they said, if it wasn't for what Black women have done for this planet, he didn't even talk about the election. He said, do you understand that they carry the entire humanity? Anytime they see something wrong, they even see those who are not of their quote unquote race, it's still their children because they're the mothers of humanity. So when they make decisions, they make just decisions according to how they're trying to raise their children in that parental guidance experience where you have divine identity, you have responsibility liberation, and you're accessing and using the spirit. And we went there. And so I want to make sure that y'all get this particular, wait, before we go there. Because now we went from Joseph to talking about Moses. And I told y'all Moses is like my ultimate favorite. And I didn't understand why he was my ultimate favorite until I realized what fueled him. And it wasn't necessarily not only the connection with the covenant, but his mom. It was the connection with his mom. And last week, I told y'all the story of the Bible and the story in the Quran, you know, they parallel each other in certain ways. And so at one point, the Bible breaks off and you see Hagar go left, and why Israel and Abraham and go right. God still blessed both his sons. One son was Isaac, had Judaism. The other son had, I believe it was Ishmael, had Islam. So when you read the Quran, you can see those joining stories. And when I read the Quran, it was something I read in the Quran that was not necessarily in the Bible. It was that opportunity when God came to Moses' mother. Think about it. When God came to Moses' mother and told her to put Moses in the river. Now, I couldn't find a picture of Moses because I'm trying to make sure y'all get all these Black images, so I found a cartoon. And just think what a woman had to go through to put her child in the river to send him upstream. God said in the Quran, it said, Quran in the Surah 28, he said, we spoke to him. And we told her he's going to be the one that we use to bring Israel out. So what level of faith did a woman have to have when she said, I hear you, God? He said, when she was in doubt, we came back. Because I'm telling her to put her baby in a basket. But you got to get it in the middle of hostile times because they were born and they were killing all males, the firstborn males. They were killing. You're not killing my son. And God said, no. Obviously, sister, with the way you are praying, we're not. You're not going to surrender. This is what you're going to do. And to have that faith that I'm going to pour all my faith in everything that I do so that my children can live. My kids can live. What? So imagine when you're pregnant, you sitting there, and I can't because I don't even have that ability. The amount of what you pour. I posted today that the most powerful ingredient that a Black woman has in her formula when she feeds her baby is her faith in God. Because she sees him in her before they come out. I'm giving this back to God. You have to have the opportunity to be the fullness of who you are. And we always know that those words, your mama, will cause you to fight or cause you to act right. You get you some get right if somebody walk up to you and be like, do I need to call your mama? Or if somebody say, yo mama, you know you fighting because of the power that exists in that woman for you. And not only that, if you are a community mother, how many kids you got and how much spirit that is. And so I need to let y'all know If you educate a man, you educate an individual. But if you educate a woman, what? You educate a nation. A nation. How many black women got up and told their sons, their grandsons, and their husbands and their brothers, y'all need to vote. Y'all need to get up and do something as we sit down and we put this together. And you sort of lied in the march. And I said, I got to give it to the sisters this week. I said, I can't just brush over and talk about or use the biblical reference and go into the Moses story without bringing in that Mother Moses spirit. Because without that Mother Moses spirit, because you got, when you have Abraham and you go all the way to Joseph, you don't really get that full-fledged spirit of a woman in that story until you hit this one. And I had to pause because what level of faith do you have to have when God tells you to put him in a basket? The water's not going to seep through the straw. What? And we're going to sit there and we're going to let it sail down. What? That level of faith. Woman knows when I plant seeds, I raise nations. That's power. So, with that being said, and I'm not going to take up this whole thing giving y'all the lesson. But with that being said, the guest I have today to come in and speak, first one, woo, Bishop Djenaba. Now, before she come on, I got to talk about this. I remember when I was just a little brother Dave, I could have been even Clayton, you know. Before I was walked into my African presence, and she came into the church, and I remember that everybody, the roar she got from the Atlanta region. I was like, wait a minute. I said, brother, who's that? He said, man, what? That's Reverend DJ. You know what I'm saying? That's Bishop DJ. It could have been Foodie DJ back then, but now it's Bishop DJ. That was like the original rock star. Before I understood what it meant to be in our community, what it meant to be a rock star. The sister is well known in every region that we have by multiple generations. And not only that, before I bring her into the state, she is one of the original cadre members, because back in when we started moving from state to state, Jeramogi, baby Ajiman used to send young individuals to a different state to build and expand on the liberation of black people with the development of the Pan-African Orthodox Christian Church, Tribes of Black Madonna in different cities. And she was an original. So now imagine this. It's not just a sister who is in the church and she gets married. No, she walked into this as a teen and said, I am birthing a nation. Ooh. And then, and you get that mother spirit, and then all of a sudden, you plant seeds and you watch them grow. And I could only imagine the vision that she had when she started versus the vision that she has now, because the work has not changed. The effort has not changed. The rock star in Foodie has not changed. So everybody, and I told her, she don't even understand. The rocks, and then let me get this. When I say rock star, it's not just the fame, but we're going to say it's the faith. It's the work. It's the drive. I'm like, wow, she's literally one of the few ministers on the up top who are not running from technology. She's still a teacher. She's embracing it. And she's bringing her own creativity to it. She is pure rock star because she said, I'm planting, God is working, has been working through me. I'm planting seeds, and we're going to fertilize this thing because we are birthing a nation. Now, as we go into the studio, you guys, we're going to bring in the rock star, Foodie, DJ, Bishop, DJ. Here she comes. Uh-oh, we're going to the studio. The rock star is now in the building. The rock star is now in the building.
What's up? What's up, brother?
Doing?
What's up?
How you doing? Again,
I'm
doing.
doing.
That's good. I'm glad and honored to have you here. I was like crossing my fingers. I'm like, I'm gonna send her this email. I hope she says yes. Because I know you give and you give and you give and you give. And I sat down. I said, well, if this is Mother Moses' spirit, I couldn't ask her, can you give some more and bless her? And I got the response. She was like, sure. And I couldn't show her how happy I was. I was like, yeah, I got the rock star in the building. How you doing this morning, sister?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I'm so happy to be here this morning.
And I want a lot of kids in Alkebulan and world of Alkebulan, because we down like to 5 generations, so to speak, in some family trees, and we don't get to understand what people went through for us to get here, for us to be, and in 67 years of talking the liberation of Black people, 67 years of working on Bugle Land, because I sat down and told him, I said, wait a minute. I remember the story I heard was there were a bunch of kids who went gleaning for quarters before we start missing. I said, wait a minute. So you have a vision of 5,000-acre farm and you asked for 25 cents. Tell us about how you came in and in what spirit, how it fueled you to continue being to go from, sister to the bishop. Woo.
Well, brother, I tell you, it is a story to be told. When I joined, I was a teenager. I was still in high school, just about ready to go to college. And I came into, but I had been exposed to it when I was in junior high. My junior high school teacher was a member of the Shrine. When I got into high school, my high school counselor was a member of the Shrine. Cardinal Manifu, who we honored just a few weeks ago with the Cardinal Manifu Community Service Award, he came to speak at our school. And when he came to speak, he put his name on the board and said, Reverend Woodrow Smith. And I remember everybody in the class was like, oh my God, we up here, we in school, why we gotta listen to a preacher? And he said, you see this REV? And we say, yeah, Reverend. He said, no, that stands for revolutionary. And when he said that, I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. this is a new day. And I was already still excited because, during that time, we didn't have any Black history in schools. And so when I found out that Egypt was in Africa, you know what I'm saying? I found out Egypt was in Africa.
Right.
Because I thought that Egypt was in the Middle East.
Right.
Until I learned that Egypt was, I said, wait a minute. So you telling me that Cleopatra was a Black woman?
Come on.
They say, oh yeah. And the first person that I could not wait to tell was my mother. I remember when I got home, I said, I got to tell my mother because I know my mama don't know this. And I told her, I said, Mama, did you know that Cleopatra was a Black woman, that she was from Africa and that Egypt is in Africa? And what she told me blew my mind.
What she said?
Yeah, I knew.
Wow.
She said, yeah, I know. And I said, but I didn't know. She said, I'm so sorry because I thought they would teach you that in school.
Right.
And so from that point on, we had a different kind of conversation. We could talk about things that I needed to know. She said, come on, sit down, let's talk. And she began to educate me about Black history. My mother, who I thought was just the mildest and meek person in the world. And she just went down the road telling me about my history and, our lineage, what we could do. So, but ever since I, go ahead.
And talk about how God works. He sent Cardinal Manifu, and it sparked that relationship because what was in your house, well, you didn't know it was there. And he said,
right.
She doesn't know the environment in which she sits in, because a lot of us, when we're young, we do take our mothers for granted. And I know,
exactly.
my mom passed on, and a lot of times I say, I wish I need to answer this question. I need to say this. I need to, and we don't get it. And so I can sit down and say, I'm one that has done that.
Right.
And
then she began to talk to me, tell me, you need to talk to your grandmother, her mother. And so when I talked to my grandmother, about some things, she said, well, yeah, she started telling me about our family, our lineage, found this Bible that belonged to my great grandmother. And in the Bible, which I still have the page, there was a family tree that went all the way back. The oldest date on the family tree was 1864.
What?
I'm talking about written in. And then before there was some names ahead of that, but it came all the way from 1864 all the way down to my current generation.
Wow.
And I was just in awe. I was like, this is our family lineage.
I am completely blown away. You said there was a story to tell. You won't play it because that's just a drop in the rest of this ocean. Because now, because we're talking about lineage, we're talking about how it goes from generation to generation. And sometimes it's spiritual and mystical, and sometimes it's concrete. And in your situation, You said 18 what?
1864.
64. That's serious.
Yeah.
And then to have
And,
your grandmama around and still talk about it.
Right. And she said, sit down, let me do something for you. And this was like in the, and I'm gonna tell, I don't mind, I'll tell my age. But this was in
I'm gonna
the,
keep it quiet.
but this was before people were wearing braids. She started cornrolling my hair. And so I was like, oh, this is different. I said, what is this? She said, they call this cornrow. And I was like, really? She said, I said, who taught you how to do this? She said, my grandmother taught me how to do this. And she began, so this was, and then she taught me how to cornrow. Eventually I taught my daughter how to cornrow. She's the one who does my hair. But it was my grandmother who planted that seed in me about wearing braids.
Wow.
And the things, and just, but just carrying on that lineage. And another tradition that, I know I'm jumping around, but
no, this look, we got the rock
star.
Look,
I'm just telling you about how family implants things in you that you, like you say, you didn't know.
Right.
When my daughter was born, my mother caught a plane from Detroit because I was in Atlanta, and she just surprised me. I mean, this is before you had cell phones, so I didn't have a phone in the house. But she just knocked on the door. I had just come home from the hospital. About, I think my daughter was like 4 days old, and I was like, I didn't know you were coming. And she said, oh, I had to be here. And I said, well, why are you here? She says, because on the 7th day, I need to take her for a walk. And I said, what do you mean? She says, it's a tradition in our family that the grandmother takes the oldest granddaughter and introduces her to the world. They have to walk her and tell her all the things she needs to know about the world. And on the 7th day, when my daughter was 7 days old, she put the clothes on her, took her down from 667 People Street, and introduced her to the world.
Wow.
Do you hear what I'm saying?
Wow.
And when she came back, I said, what did you talk about? She said, I told her the things that she needed to know. And she said, your grandmother did it to you when you were born, on your 7th day. She said, I can't tell you how far it goes back. And then she said, but when you have your first granddaughter, you got to do the same thing. And I did.
Wow. Wow. I always tell people I got to hold myself emotionally because I never realize what I'm walking into until I walk into it. And so and this is why it was important for me to have people come in and speak their truths and that spirit. So because in the middle of us being in this hostile environment right now, it's to understand how we got here in this point as Black people and survive. I will survive. When people put up that, when they were wearing that, I cannot breathe, I said I had an offense to it because I said, wait a minute, that's not who we are. We don't, just to put up, and I appreciate the brother and everything that he represented as he made his transition, Floyd and all the other ones who passed away because of the violence. But I always try to tie something positive to it that I will survive and I will breathe. And then just a statement of having them to come in and talking about how this process in your family goes down the bloodline, that we are building a connection of this struggle where I'm introducing you to the world that belongs to you. And you may not even understand it physically, but it's when a mother, I don't even want to cry, begins to speak to the spirit of her child. How powerful is that right there? Speaking to the spirit of a child. And that's and it was something I felt like I had to learn how to do when I started working in the nursing, the bio, because it was not about the physical. It's not just about the physical care. And so coming from you now, how important is that spiritual conversation that you have when you speak life into a child? How important is that?
It's important. It's very important. I began to talk to my children, like I said, once I knew that they were within me. I would have conversations while I was still carrying them in my womb. I would read stories. I would tell them, I was happy to have them, that I was always mindful that God gave me this gift. That this was, not just my doing, but I'm just God's instrument. And I just want to be a vessel that can bring forth this life, because God was going to use them in a way that they needed to be used. That, you know, I might have my dreams and aspirations, but what they were going to be able to do, I knew God was going to work wonders through them. And I wanted them to know, even before they took the first breath, that they had that power and ability to be and to do whatever, you know, they wanted to do, even beyond that. And that was important for me, you know, I think when I was younger, I always felt like I was going to have a daughter first. I don't know why, but I felt like I did. And I had already picked her name out. This was, you know, even before I picked her name out. I think I was about 18. I picked out her name. And when I later on, when she was born, one of my friends, you know, my lifelong friends, you know, when she said, "What did you have?" I said, "Girl." She said, "Oh, well, how's Nefertiti doing?" And she knew. We had already said it ahead of time.
And that's it. It's one of the things that I tell kids in the Keeper Lab, that they say, I tell them, God knew you before he formed you in the womb. So there was conversation there. And it's a concept where they say you get to pick the channel in which you're coming from. So like you saying, I was young saying I knew I was having a girl. So it could have been a scenario on the other side where I'm speaking to my mother before she becomes my mother. And I'm watching the development of my mom, and I'm looking at the lineage of this bloodline, and I need to drop her a seed to get ready because there's a girl coming to you. And then it was, I say, even with me, when my daughter was being born, because I can't say it goes back that far where I was talking, I just knew it was her mama. I knew we were gonna have children the minute I saw her. I can't say I didn't. I told my daughter the story. But when it came down to selecting the name, we didn't want to know the sex, and I'm trying to come up with boys' names, and I'm looking through it, and I'm flipping the pages, and I'm looking, and I'm trying to figure out what I'm gonna do. And I couldn't come. We went into labor with no boy's name, so if it came out a boy, it would have been boy one. But all I had was Ayan Amantala Tahimba Tulanagwe, you know, and when she came out, I said, there it is. You know, no boys' names, no list. I was not prepared. Cardinal Swab was standing right outside. And it was funny, all this energy, I kept running back and forth, like, oh, I see the head. Oh, she pushing. Oh, she coming. And it was funny. But that spiritual experience you have when you can speak into your child. So now in the space where, because last week we talked about the election and what Black women did, but before Black women actually produced, there's that faith. And how important do you believe that, or how important have you seen that it's the faith of Black women that is the catalyst to our community?
Well, I think what is crucial. Without faith, you know, you're paralyzed. Exactly. But with faith, you say, "Well, I'm going to do it." You know, because when Jeremy first put out the call and said he wanted some young people to go to Atlanta to open up, called it the Gateway to the South. And we wanted to have a shrine there. And it was just an idea. We didn't have a building, you know, we didn't have anything. And I remember saying, this is what I need to do. So, you know, I put in a transfer from the University of Michigan, where I was attending as a student, and I applied at Clark Atlanta University. And I said, you know, it's as simple as that. I got to go. This is something I have to do. And it was just the belief that we could build something that would be powerful enough, and that Black people in Atlanta would hear what we were talking about. And I remember once I got to Atlanta, I had a little work study job while I was in school. And one of the older women in the building, she asked me, she said, "What made you decide to come to Atlanta besides school?" I said, "Well, we're getting ready to build a church." She said, "Who's going to build a church?" I said, "Me and it's 4 other people." She said, "For what? Students?" I said, "Yeah." And I remember the whole office just erupted into laughter. And so they were like, "I can't, why do you think, what makes you think that how old are you? 19? And you getting ready to build a church?" They said, "What gives you that thought? How can you even conceive of that?" And I said, "I just believe it because I know we can do it." And to this day, I still hope that at some point, the people who were in that office could have come by and see Shrine now.
I think they probably did. Wait, wasn't that young sister, 19-year-old sister?
But the thing about it was, like you talking about just that faith, when we first started bringing in college students, all we had was a picture. We had a picture of Shrine One. We had a picture of the National Training Center.
Wow.
We had a picture, we had a copy of Black Christian Nationalism and a copy of Black Messiah. And we said, this is who we are. And we getting ready to build it here in Atlanta. And they, you know, and they were able to feel that feeling that we had. They were able to feel the energy that we had, and they decided that they wanted to become a part. We had about 100 students who had joined by the time the shrine actually came into being in Atlanta.
In Atlanta. So y'all went from 4 members in the city of Atlanta to 100, starting with 19-year-old. Now, there is no other church that I know of, and maybe I need to do some that. The foundation of its expansion was based off of youth, based off of kids, and then it was the faith poured into the kids for them to be able to see who they are in God, and that power. And so in this space also, because I'm trying to keep it current, because we have parents now who are overwhelmed by a variety of things in today's society. And it's the overwhelming issue of the civil unrest, which is the last week I called it the online entertainment of brutality against Black people. It is entertainment not only to white folks, but it's also entertainment to us, because we sit down and we stand there with the cell phone, not putting the cell phone down and trying to do something about it. You know what I mean? And that's another thing, or calling somebody for help, calling your boys. I only seen one scenario where a sister called on some dudes that was nearby, and they made sure that this police officer was not going to do any harm. Look, you can do whatever you want, but you're going to have to kill a multitude of us, because we're not allowing this to happen, or no disrespect happen to anybody in our community. So now do your job, but you're not going to do any more than that. And so that's the hard part. But that hope, what would be the key points to mothers now who are fearful for their sons? Because I said, well, what identity are you giving your child? Because we've been born and raised as a people in a hostile environment since we've been here.
Yeah, I think having a son, which his name means I prayed and he came, Allende. And I've had the conversation with him, because at one point when first we started all these things with, different Black men were targeted. And I remember one day he was getting ready to go out, and he came up to me and he asked me, he said, "Mama, do I look dangerous?" And when he said that, it hit me in the core. It hit me deep in my heart. And I told him, I said, "No." I said, "You're not dangerous. You are powerful." And that's what people fear. Wow. They fear your power. They feel your power. But just be mindful that you are a part of a strong community, and God is always going to be with you. And, it wasn't like, me telling him, don't do this, don't have any sudden moves. Right. I was like, be yourself, be who you are. And we're going to prevail. We're going to prevail. And I think that if we felt, we can't feel that this situation is unattainable.
Right.
Because in each generation, we've had to overcome so many obstacles. Right. But it's our faith that keeps us moving, putting one foot in front of the other. We can't stop. We can't be intimidated, because there's something stronger than man. Right. And that's the power that God has within each of us, that divinity that we all have. That power is stronger and can overcome anything that, people try to put in our path.
And how did and we talked about and wow, because let everybody know Alkebulan, when y'all talk about and say the pledge, I got to let y'all know, because she told me before the show, she's the sister that wrote the pledge. What we say every day.
The Alkebulan rise of the Black nation live.
Wow. I said I got nothing but history on this show today.
Well, as we were putting things together, different things in Total House and Alkebulan, it was like, we need to have some mantras, we need to have some mottos, we need to have some slogans, because what we believe has to be internalized. I remember when I first joined, and our first Holy Patriarch, Djenaba Baby Achman, told us that we say the creed every time we come together, the Black Christian Nationalist Creed. He said, but one day the creed is going to be internalized. You won't have to say it every day, but you will live it. But it begins with you saying it. And so we said, well, we have to have some kind of affirmations for our children, our youth. And one of the things that I really always had a passion for, and that was working with young people. When I was first asked if I wanted to be in a leadership position when I got in Atlanta, I said, well, I want to work with young people, with the teenagers. I wanted to work with the sisters, YTG, youth training group. Mm-hmm. They said, why do you want to work with kids? I said, I want to work with kids because people work with me.
Wow.
I was not the most perfect adolescent. And I could say, when I look back on it, sometimes I tell my daughter, she say, well, what happened? I say, that's some stories you don't need to tell.
I can't tell you everything.
But let me tell you, I'm glad I made it to the other side.
There we go.
God had a plan for me. But we came up with different models, different emblems, all of our t-shirts. We started making t-shirts with, images on it. We talked about the whole thing about the power of the Black mind, and we've had our first computer center before computers were really accessible. We opened up a computer technological center in Atlanta, and we had about 12 computers, desktop computers in there, and we had a control center. And remember, they said, well, you're going to be in charge of it. I'm like, me? I was like, I don't know anything about networking computers. They said, well, here's the book. I know you can figure it out. And sure enough, I went through it there and I was trying to figure out how to connect all these computers. I was like original IT before I knew what IT was.
IT became IT. You were still it.
Yeah. And Black youth would come in after school, and on Sundays, after kids from the community say, go ahead and log in. Some who had never even used a computer before, but we were trying to expose our young people to things that would be not just stimulating, but would give them the power, would unleash that power that they had within themselves. We were trying to unleash that power so they knew who they were and be proud of who they were and let the world know.
And that's the part where the point I put out was that's giving them their divine identity in all sense of affirmation. Because I know I necessarily didn't grow up with affirmations. It wasn't that environment, and I had to pick up my own affirmation. And it's funny for me, until it became cultural. The only thing I had growing up was Bret the Hitman Hart, which is a white wrestler. But he said the phrase, I am the best that is, I am the best that was, and I'm the best that will ever be. And so I sat down and I was like, you know what? That's me. I'm regardless where you put me, no matter how. I was only 4'8". I'm 5'7" now, but I was 4'8" in the 11th grade, so my growth spurt came late. But if you could not tell me I was 4'8" standing around a bunch of 6 feet dudes, because I was the best that is, I was the best that was, and I was the best that I will ever be. When and like you said in reference to that affirmation where you become it. In my mom's last days, me and my mother had a hard relationship because I was a boy. I wasn't just a boy, I was that boy. And so she said, if I could control this knucklehead, I could control the rest of it. And so I talked to her and I was like, Ma, why was you so hard on me, the whole process, but you like pampered all of them. She looked at me and she said, what is your limit? I said, what you talking about? She said, boy, what's your limit? I said, why you talking to me like that? You know I ain't got no, and I took offense to it. I said, you know I ain't got no limit. Where's your ceiling? I said, what you mean my ceiling? How dare you say I got a ceiling? I ain't had no ceiling. And she got back. She just looked at me and she said, I had to learn how to communicate with you. And she said, you went against everything I ever said. And so the only way I know I can get you to push yourself is go against everything you'll ever do. Oh, that's not good enough. That won't work. That won't do this. That ain't that. Oh, I seen better. And every time I told you I seen better, you would try to produce what you thought I was talking about. So you realize ain't nothing you can do. And so she looked at me and she said, I did from what I knew. And she went, but it worked. And I was like, wow. That's
true. And I think, and that's the power. That's the power, because so many times when we are younger, we say, well, we find fault in what our parents do. Or sometimes I say, when I get children, I'm not gonna do like my mother did. But as soon as I got children, I wanted to do exactly what my mother did, but just take it a step further. I wanted to use those faults. So there was, I would always call her on the phone and say, what about this? What about that? And now that she's passed on, in my mind, I started thinking about what were some of the lessons that she taught me. I can hear her voice, resonating, in my soul. I can hear my grandmother's talks. I can hear my great grandmother, who lived to be 105. And when I was a little toddler, she used to grab me when I would go over my aunt's house, my great aunt's house, and tell me, when I was your age, girl, I was a slave. And I remember that scared the Jesus out of me. And I kept saying, why does she keep saying this? Why does she keep saying this? When I got old enough to understand, it just brought me to my knees.
Wow.
But she wanted me to know, from where our family came. So, but we can't, and even in difficult times, we cannot stop talking to our children, to our grandchildren. And even as a teacher, as an educator, I talk to the students in my class like they're my children. I treat them like they're my children. We have affirmations in my class, and the affirmation ends up by saying, I'm going to be my best self.
And that's
what? My best self.
And and it's funny, well, one of the things, because on the side, we were talking about Nakaya. And that was one of the things Nakaya said about Alkebulan. She said, in Alkebulan, we're raised with the phrase that you got to be your best self. And so every time I turn in everything I do, I'm trying to be my best self. And when I'm looking at her now as a teen, I'm like, girl, you your best self, you your mama's best self, your auntie's best self, you a lot of best selves going on.
Definitely.
and
Definitely.
And
she's a rising star.
Woo! And so talking about that in terms of what is the secret, you feel, if there is one, in terms of fertilizing that seed, making that experience of divine identity transgenerational? Because even as a teacher, because we have parents who are struggling to get, little Roscoe, he falling asleep in class, and one kid didn't wake. I remember parents walking through the office, because I work every day still, and I'm walking through the building, and we got a mask on. I'm trying to, because I'm IT, and my building cannot shut down according to what it does. So, and I actually run the whole building, and that's the hard part of balancing the world, which is this world and then our world. Trying to do all that after my 8 hours, I gotta come home and put 8 hours in. But parents are having an issue trying to instill that experience where even if I'm not there, I need you to be your best self. So what I guess tips can you give parents who are struggling with that? And then when the parents aren't there, what things are you using while you're in class to influence the kids to always give their best self in this new environment?
Well, first thing I tell them in the morning, the first thing I ask all my students to do is to let me know, how do you feel? I start off with, I have this song by Mandisa that says, good morning. Good morning, it's a brand new day. Good morning, I'm on my way. I woke up, let's get this party started. That's my morning song, my introduction. And I'm up there dancing and having them dancing. Come on, dance with me. We get ready to dance. Let's get it. Come on. And they look at me like, what? I said, nobody's going to dance with me. I'll dance by myself. And pretty soon they start singing the song. And I say, I want to know, how do you feel? How do you feel? And so they'll, I'll draw a little face, like a little emoji, and have them. But and they were shocked that I wanted to hear from them, that I wanted to know what they thought, that what they thought was important to me. And so from that point, engagement is the key. Keep them engaged. It can't be, I don't want to be a talking head where I'm just doing all the talking and they just looking at me like they're watching TV. I'm like, no, I need to know what you can do. Show me what you do. Hold your paper up in front of that screen. Let me see what you got. And then when they hold it up, I said, oh, that's so, I haven't seen anything so beautiful. That is perfect. That is so wonderful. They said, well, I can't read. I said, you can't read yet, but you will be, I don't know how to do math. I said, you don't know how to do math yet, but you will.
Come on.
Yet. I need that yet, because you're going to get there. And what you know today is more than you knew yesterday. and we're going to keep it up. And so, and every day is an opportunity, you know, every day is an opportunity to learn, to be better. And I tell them every day, I'm so excited. If it wasn't for you guys, I don't think I could make it. And they say, what do you mean? I say, because you are just the best class I've ever had. And they say, really? I'm like, yes, there's no class greater than you because you're great students. And everybody in here is smart. And they're like, but I've never heard nobody tell me that before. I said, well, I'm telling you right now. Well, my sister, I don't care what your sister said.
Right.
Well, Miss So-and-so said, I don't care. Tell them I said it. And if they got a problem with it, come see me. You know, but the whole thing is to give them give them the power to be who they can be.
Wow.
Don't put them in a box.
Wow.
You know, the worst thing you can do, like even when you have a little child who's learning how to read, and you know, sometimes you have a little book and you say, let's go to book, and they'll start turning the pages. You're like, no, I'm on this page. Let them go. Let them explore. They want to look at everything. They'll come back to the first page. But right now, let them understand that they have the power to go to the next page, even if you're not ready to go. They have the power to go. They don't have to wait on you.
The awareness of the power within. Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
In other words, you have to, yeah. And I tell them all the time, I say, give yourself permission. They say, what do you mean? I say, you're the one who gives yourself permission to learn. Nobody else can give you permission. You have to give yourself permission. Tell yourself that you have the ability. Give yourself permission to be open, to grow, and to be all that you can be, because there's no limit to what you can be.
And with that, and it's funny because even now, parents having to, after you give them that identity, and after you speak that into them, now you got to get up, and some parents, I know at my job, some parents got to leave home, you know, but then I think the other situation, still doing the reverse end, is the fact that parents never had to even help educate their own kids. It's always turn them loose, like hands up. So now the conflict is happening in the home where, because my conflict is, well, my daughter's in college, you know, she's in college, and I'm going most of the days she's in college, doing college in the bedroom, right? But the average individual now is, you become the person that should have been in the classroom. My mother, straight up, we couldn't, and I said on the show before, Mildred did not allow you to come home with no homework. You came out, and she would tell the teacher, look, I'm going to beat my kids if you don't bring them home with no homework, and they're going to be on punishment. Now, I would go to class with the belt and put on Fridays and put it on her desk. And the teacher looked at me and said, excuse me, sir, what is this? That's what my mama going to beat me with if you don't give me homework today.
Look, I have this year, I have a mixed class. So very unique, because I normally would teach 3rd, 4th, or 5th grade. This year I'm teaching 1st and 2nd grade together. So I have some students who, you know, one of my students, he told me proudly, I'm 6 years old. I'm like, you're 6 years old. I want you to say, I'm 6 years old. He said, okay, I'm 6 years old. I said, great. I said, well, we're going to learn together. So they're learning how to write. So they couldn't write. So I said, okay, well, you're going to do some videos. So I had the parents doing videos so they can talk and explain to me how they're looking at problems, what they do. So they're producing their own little videos. I'll send them a little video clip and say, this is what I'm doing. I want you to do the same thing. And so since they can't write it, they can show me. But finding a way to meet them where they are and to help them grow to what they can become. That's the key.
Now, how do you build that bridge between the parent who has never done it and they're finding themselves in the house having to do it? What can you feed into that parent to also, because
conversation. I talk to them all the time. I have my parents, some of my parents, I had to give them my personal phone number. I said, here's my number, call me. Here's my home number, call me. And then I'll call them or text them I've talked to parents this year more than I have in the past, you know, where we're talking on a regular basis. And I say, listen, this is what we're trying to do. And I, you know, text them, they'll text me during the day, but just having that conversation. And then I tell them, I said, look, I have children too. I have grandchildren. I know what you're going through. I know this is difficult. I know you're not ready for it, but guess what? Your child is ready. So help me get them in a position, because they're going to show you how to do it in a minute. You may not know how to connect, but I'm going to show them, and then they're going to show you how to connect. You know, so and just letting them know that their child has the ability to learn. And they just have to be patient. I say it's not going to be perfect, and sometimes it's going to look messy, it's going to look ugly, but we're going to get there because we're in this together. We're in this together, and that's the whole thing in terms of the election and everything else. We're in this together. I can't separate. I can't hold my little family, isolated from what's going on in the world.
Right.
It's a whole community that we have to work with. So we as Black women have never had the luxury of saying, well, just for me. No, it's us. We're connected. We can't isolate ourselves.
We in this together. There was
That's right.
because it took, I know, and we about to end, we close to the end, but I like flowing. But one of the things that when I grew up with, it took my mother giving, because my dad was gone when I was 7, so I was man of the house at 7. But there was a brother who was a cop in our building. And for those from New York who are watching, I'm going to give a shout out to Mr. Martin. One love to the Martins. Thank you. He was a father to a lot of us. My mother had to come to me and said, boy, if that man found out or he hear that you acting up, I've given him permission. Because she knew I can't do this by myself. So the family that we have that might be right here, we're not alone. And I've never had an experience growing up where wherever I was, where I felt like there wasn't the sense of extended family. We're So and Black women have that innate feeling that there is no disconnectedness from me to you, and it's a part of who we were
always. Yeah, and I was, like I said, growing up, you knew all your neighbors. They knew you. When you walked down the street, they knew whose child you was, whose grandchild you was. They were all those ties, those bonds. There was no separation. I very few times in my life that I remember when there was not an extended family member living in the house with us, or us living in the house with another family member. My family started off in Mississippi on my dad's side and Alabama on my mother's side, and whenever they came up to Michigan, they had a place to stay at somebody's house. So you may have had to be shifted around from bedroom to couch to pallet on the floor. But they were gonna make room.
But you was home.
You were part of that family. But you was home.
You was home.
You were home.
Me and my Brooklyn family, I'm from Queens, and my Brooklyn family it was exactly like that. My sister, my older sister, Les, you always watch. One love. I could tell her, look, I'm at the airport. And she was like, which one? I just got off JFK because I couldn't contact her before I left Atlanta. She said, well, you know how to get here. And that was through my college years and everything. And it was maybe 2 years ago. I get a ring on my doorbell. Bling, blong. And I open it up. And I'm like, Les. And she said, well, I didn't want to tell you I was coming. Come on in here. We got room. And you're going to find your spot like that. Now, before we go, I want to...
Let me tell you one more thing. Brother. We're talking about family.
Take it.
When we came to Atlanta, like I said, as college students, we were there at Clark, Atlanta, and some kind of way our housing got messed up. We didn't have a place to stay. After freshman orientation was over, they said, well, sorry, we don't have a room for you guys, so y'all gonna have to go. And we're like, go where? We don't have any place to go. And they said, well, you can't stay here. And we were like, what? We got to go. And so I remember our cadre, we were sitting on the steps outside of the dorm. And we said, what are we going to do? And I remember before I left, my mother had took a sheet of paper and she said, this is your Aunt Pearl who lives in Atlanta. When you get to Atlanta, make sure you call her. And I reached in my pocket. I got her phone number. I went to the telephone booth and gave her a call.
Yeah, because it wasn't a flip. You had to have that quarter.
It wasn't a flip.
That quarter or that dime to put it in there.
Look. I had to ask somebody for the quarter. I called her up. I told her I was in Atlanta. Within minutes, my cousin was there. He picked not just me up, but the whole cadre.
Wow.
They fed us dinner. And then when they thought they were going to give us a ride back to school, I told her, I said, well, actually, we don't have a place to stay. They're like, what? I said, well, that don't make no sense. Okay, but y'all had to stay here with us. The whole cadre stayed with our family.
That's
we
big.
Stayed. They lived with my cousin. He gave us his apartment. We all stayed there in that apartment for the first month. until Jeremy found out. And he was like, why didn't y'all tell us y'all didn't have a place to stay? We're like, well, we was trying to make it on our own.
You know what I'm saying? We're trying to build a nation. You're supposed to tell me we in this together.
Exactly. We didn't understand. We were just trying to work it out, you know. But yeah, we stayed with my family members who had not set eyes on us. They just knew we were family.
Wow. One of the things
all of
I have to do, and we'll have to set this up. We need a scenario where we stream the conversations of the cadre. The stories, and we've been talking for years how we need to document what we do and how we do what we do in our experiences, because we are walking scripture. We are walking history. The largest Black-owned farm in the United States. You know what I'm saying? So we have efforts of you, because teenager, 19, where we at today had a lot to do with the work y'all put in. And I try to tell the kids, look, they have it. They saw it. There was a picture. They had it. We had a model of it in the back of the sanctuary. You actually now
that I built.
Right. What?
I built that. I built that model.
Get it? What? You're a true rock star.
Those little toys are putting in there.
Little fun for real. Man, the secrets are coming out, and I'm getting all the gems. We have to have these conversations. Wow. Hey guys, and I wish I gotta see if I can find a picture of the diagram. Tell me you got a picture of it. Somewhere.
I probably somewhere. But those little lights, those little traffic lights that you see, those little street lights that you put up there, at one point they all lit up.
I could tell because I could see the wiring. I was all in there like this. I went through
all the hobby shops I could find in Atlanta to find those little pieces and put them together.
Wow. To put that together back then, wow. I was always sitting there looking at like, who did all of this? Because I had model trains, tracks, everything. I would always do stuff like that. But when I came there, I could sit down and the church could be going. I just want to sit down and look and I'm looking at the nuances and the intricacy, and you see it in the training center, and you see it in the dining hall. You just saw all the buildings and they had labels on them. It was just thorough, and it was a vision. And and this is where we'll go because it's the last thing. It was a vision. So now, and even like with going back to the biblical reference with Moses and his mom, and God gave her the vision of what I need you to do and what He's going to accomplish. And knowing all the things that you have, all the seeds you have planted in reference to the development of the world of Alkebulan. And I don't want to get emotional because I realize the legacy of what I'm part of and how far it goes back and how much people poured into it. And to be able to do this, you know, to be able to create the website and do the things that I'm doing off of the spirit that has been poured before me, way before me. When she put him in the ocean, in the river, to send him down the Nile, she had the preset vision of what God, she already knew his identity. She knew the purpose of liberation. She understood the covenant promise. She understood the spirit in which was going to drive him. She knew that. And so when she made those actions and she did those things, she was clear that God's got this. Is there a vision that you had or still have for Alkebulan? And now that we're entering into this new technological era, can you share what you saw, what you see, and what you hope for as we go? Because you put us, and wow, I can sit down and say, I'm one of the babies that you put in the basket. I'm the one that
one of the things I know, I think that I know that even in my wildest imagination, the things that I see doesn't even touch the surface of what can be. When I see Nakaya, when I see my granddaughters, I know that it's, you know, they're going to take it to a whole new level. It's I'm not afraid. I just feel confident that this was going to go. You know, one of the first poems I wrote when I joined the church as a teenager was, I searched and I finally found the answer. And that answer is going to live in future generations. You know, we're not done. We're just getting started.
I searched and I finally found the answer. I'm not scared. We just getting started. Now I'm gonna, cause there's nothing else. I'm gonna end with that. If you want to hang around so we can talk later, if you gotta go, I understand because we went past time. But I can go another hour if you let me. So I'm gonna ask you to come back. I'm gonna ask you to, and we can do this if we can. Show the world the bloodline. You, your daughter,
Okay.
and the grandbabies, and have the
Okay.
conversation and talk about the connection that you all share. And that'll be a
Okay.
good
That'd
thing,
be great.
right? And
We
so
can do that.
I'm a take a step into this.
That was rewind, select rewind of a conversation that we had with Bishop Djenaba in regards to her service to the black community from 19 until now. She's still in Houston. She's still teaching. She's still raising uh, liberated minded kids, meaning that they are free from mental bondage. And so hopefully you were able to get something from the blast from the past because I did. I'm sitting here smiling from ear to ear because I don't always realize how how I look and how I sound when I'm doing live because I never watch myself and I never listen to myself. But I definitely had and then I did record the conversation her and I had after the show, which was a good thing. And maybe I might one day post that. But this is again our anniversary, 69 years. That was 2 years ago, where she gave history on the development of our youth program, which is World of Akibaland now and where we're going. Have a powerful meeting today in regards to World of Akibaland, and we're hoping that I already did the prayers for it. So y'all say a prayer for the World of Akibaland, the growth of the World of Akibaland, the development of resources for World of Akibaland, because what we need is a Black Power generation. What we do need is a Black cyber generation. What we need is a experience in the Black community where our leadership drive is transgenerational. And when we send our kids, my daughter now is out of she's going to get her PhD, so she's in Oregon right now. And we had quite a few kids go out to college this year, and I'm gonna reach out to them. We are building a virtual village called Bilakuta without walls. We've been doing this for a while, so the church is finally trying to fine tune the official process of this, of us doing it as a larger church community. World of Keebland, we have been doing it for a long time now, uh, in a particular level of excellence. And so I thank you for coming, and I hope y'all were able to get something from that. Uh, Again, this process of liberating the minds of our youth is transgenerational. I never knew the seeds that she was planting at 19 would have been fertilized and growing within me, which is indirectly direct. She's always a rock star. She still is a rock star. Uh, that was great. I might drop some more next week. I want to talk about ask you the question, are you a revolutionary? Are you really a revolutionary? And we'll deal with that. And hopefully your spirit was blessed by looking at an individual who gave her life to the liberation of Black people. There's nothing more greater experience you can have in God by serving the lives of those who will come after. Mm. With that, one love. Happy anniversary.